Thank you very much. Very enthusiastic, and we are very aware, based on your comments, of what we need to be looking at. And Naleti, as the lone female in this panel, I want to go to you first, if you don't mind, because what you did is you actually shared some of the real life best practices that are happening through your youth movement across the continent. And I think this was very instructive to show that the youth really are stepping forward and they're inventing things and creating things just almost out of thin air. Whatever's around them, they're making it happen. Tell us how, through the movement that you have, the one for Black youth, is really bringing change to the young people right now and not waiting 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. What's happening now that's bringing this change? And share with us. We have time. We actually
Yes,
are a little early, so we're going to take it.
thank you, sir. Is that me? Is that our first one you're
No,
asking?
this is Naleti. I'll be back to you. Have no fear. Nobody gets off the hook.
Okay, good. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks so much
Okay.
for the question. So I think actually the reality is it's the other way around, right? All that global Black youth exists to do is highlight work that is already happening and connect those young people to one another and to opportunities to scale that work. And so what's been fantastic for us is through my own work and through my co-founders' work, we have kind of worked with young people of African descent all over the world. And we've seen from place to place that there are so many synergies between the way that they're innovating, the sectoral work that they're doing, and what was missing was kind of those cross-regional connections. And so all we do, again, is to house, a space in which they can engage. And so like everybody, we always really believed that there was never going to be a time in which young people were going to sit idly by and watch COVID happen, no matter what the directives were from authority figures. But I think we were definitely surprised by the diversity of responses, right? Global Black Youth hosted a series of webinars looking specifically at how young people are responding, how Black communities are responding, led by young people in the areas of entrepreneurship and economic development, in technology and new ways of kind of countering misinformation and in innovation and new kind of health and sciences. And there's a wealth of examples that I can give just around health and sciences that have come out of places like Ghana, Senegal, Mozambique that I haven't touched upon. And so what we've learned from them is they just need a place to connect and to show people what they're doing. And that's really what Global Black Youth is trying to do, is to just give them that platform, right? So that they can, what we know about the African continent is that the expertise is there, right? When we talk about the major problems or issues that the world is facing, it's predominantly young Black people that are at the front lines of these issues. And so they have that expertise, they have that deep contextual knowledge, they understand what it is that their communities are facing, and they have ideas and solutions, but it's access, right? It's the access to resources, it's the access to partnerships, it's the access to opportunities that they're lacking. And so that's what we're trying to do, is really highlight how it is that we can provide that greater access to this, population that is integral to solving so many of the problems that we see, but is so often left out of the discussions, so often left as, this marginalized problem to be solved. And so just to get to your question, what we see happening is these individual and kind of sporadic initiatives, as I've outlined. And what we're trying to do is to connect those sporadic outlines into a kind of larger, broader global agenda in which we can bring resources, in which we can bring greater expertise, training, and opportunities to bear, so that work can be scaled.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, and I was really pleased with the list. I want you to send those to me because we have the Emerald Planet Television. We cover all 54 countries on the continent as well as the rest of the world, and we're always looking for, as we say, new talent, and we'd like to give a voice to this. We're already doing. We just did interviews on 4 water projects in Kenya this week, and so we want to accelerate this sharing around the globe through television first, and then social media. But Dr. Beach, looking at your entrepreneurship and the research and work that you've been doing, tell us a little bit about how what you're doing fits into what Naleti's doing and how we can mesh this entrepreneurship that you're talking about with the work that she's doing and also with Alphonsus and also with Frank.
Well, one of the major deficits in the continent of Africa is energy. So there are some people that are putting forth some energy generating projects. One project is called a waste to energy project, where they would take trash and convert it into electricity and then connect that particular electricity to the national grid, and it would give more power to the energy needs of a particular country. Now, this particular type of project, and they can go in any country that has trash, and most countries have trash somewhere. But basically, you've got a job creation in that somebody's got to pick up the trash in an organized fashion. Somebody's got to separate the trash, prior to it being utilized in the plant, and somebody has to actually operate the plant. So there's a job creation connection with energy, and certainly youth members would be great for dealing with that. And likewise, there's a new emphasis and interest in solar. There are many solar farms now being developed in different countries, both familiar with ones in Kenya and Zambia, where there are areas of the country that just didn't have enough power. I mean, they may only have power 15 to 20% of the day. Now with these new solar farms, you're going to see an increase in power, which means that two things happen with power. Now you have an opportunity to create more jobs because manufacturers need power. Businesses need power in order to operate, and that will give them a reason to hire more people, and you create more jobs. Likewise, the educational system, when kids go home, they need to have light so they can do their homework. And I always say, most importantly, they need Wi-Fi. We really need to have more opportunities for internet connections when kids go home. They need a tablet and access to Wi-Fi, and it would increase their educational strengths tremendously. So there's a lot of things going on, but sometimes it's in individual sectors. And right now, energy is a very, very important sector that everybody can get involved in, and it's going to see Africa grow fast. And it may be part of the solution to some of the shortcomings that we have with this COVID-19.
Yeah, and I think following up on that, Dr. Beach, is the whole fact of renewable energy. There's a big project in downtown Abuja, 200 companies, the main hospital, several universities, and a number of the hotels and the hospitality industry have signed on to this. And it's 200 businesses that are depending right now on diesel generation. And so when you put in this solar energy, you'll be removing all of the green carbon or the heavy carbon that's going into the atmosphere. And at the same time, as you're saying, you're generating a whole new training base, transfer of technologies into local communities. And I think that's really a wonderful way to go. Frank, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Okay, Frank. Looking at the energy and enthusiasm you have for youth, this huge numbers are coming already on the African continent. How do you see what Naledi is doing ties in with your theme and also your vision for youth on the continent, and also what Dr. Beach is talking about?
Yeah, I do agree with both of them. I think that the real problem with African youth, it's not that we cannot do things for that youth. The problem is that the will for the people for governments, there is no will for the government, for their people to create things and to be entrepreneur. And it's very simple. There is not the will because they're afraid that power will shift because when you empower your own people, your people have make the decision who's going to lead them. Unfortunately, in Africa, it's people are keeping power. It's trickled down from families. I mean, it's families who stay in power for 5 generations, for many generations, and that's the problem. So it's not that there is great mind in Africa, and I think that we have everything to succeed. There is plenty of sun, so I do believe that solar energy is a very good solution. Actually, there is an African American who Akon, who is very well known, who's actually doing a lot of things concerning solar energy in Africa. He's trying to bring that particular energy in most countries, but he's able to do that also not because he's an African, but also because he's an American. You see, I think that there is a problem. Government, for whatever reason, are afraid of a youth that is creating an independent youth, because they understand that if the youth is independent, they're going to organize themselves and, of course, kick them out of office, not by force, but by votes, simply because they have the means, they have the money. So that's what the problem is. We have a lot of streams and rivers in Africa, so we should have energy. All of these, we have a lot of falls all over Africa. I was told that in Zaire alone, the river of Zaire can lead up the whole continent of Africa. So I don't think that projects are not doable, but I think it's the will. Most of the African governments are willing to help the youth get out of that poverty? And the answer, unfortunately for me, it's not.
Okay, thank you very much. Alphonsus, looking at your work and the research that you've been doing, you're talking about the youth were told to go home, stay home, don't be out in the streets. Yet on a day-to-day basis, they need to be helping their families as far as food and sustenance, energy is concerned. What do you see as 2 or 3 very positive projects that you have seen, or what would you suggest as far as positive ways for agriculture, for energy? What do you see for the future of the youth and how they can contribute? Looking again at Nayeli's very long document and presentation about these projects are going on for COVID-19, how can this continue beyond COVID-19? Unmute yourself, please.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
There you are. Okay, thank you. Welcome back.
Yeah. One is that what the last speaker said, the youth have to be empowered. And how would that be? First of all, that's what we call intrinsic motivation. They have fear and faith don't mix up. They have to remove their fear and have a faith that is doable. I remember when we have bad governance in some part of Europe or around the world, the proletariats, the peasants, they revolted. If the youth of the world can march to the government house and tell the government, look, we are tired of you, trust me, they will run out of that, despite their guns and barrels. Let them have the will to launch a nationwide demonstration to tell them enough is enough. If that happens, then the other resources in terms of money, because you need money, and then that money will be channeled towards whatever agenda and ideas they have to put in place for the better development. And the other thing is the Western support. You see, when different laws in America, let me use Jim Crow's law in the South, when it was in place, okay, it was meant against the African Americans. But there were good white men, good white women that supported the Black movement then, that crumbled that law. And so in as much that are bad sponsors, government, Western bad sponsorship, there are good people like you and others who can really rally around the African movement of all kinds of organizations coming together to empower the youth to do that. Because I believe the future is in the hands of the youth. But we need that support. We need that voice. We need the people like you and others. Use your platform or any other network to tell the youth of the world, today, we are going to make a difference. And I believe when that happens, you will see a new world order, not this kind of that we're talking about. The new world order,
Okay, thank
where
you
the
very much.
future
Dr.
is in the
Beach,
hands of the world.
Dr. Beach, going back to you. We heard from Frank and Naledi about engaging the youth, involving the youth. How can you, through your research, through the work that you've been doing, how can we take entrepreneurship to this youth and channel it in a very positive, dynamic way, but in a way that they understand it, not something that's imposed from the United States or from Europe or China, Japan, or anywhere. Is how can we allow them the opportunities? And Naledi, you're going to be on next, so you know what's coming for you. How can we engage them so that they can use their own local genius and the wisdom of the elders that are around them, that's going to take the continent forward over these next 5, 10, or 15 years?
And one of the things that we've been encouraging is that there are groups of business and professionals in many countries, whether it's the chambers of commerce, or in Kenya, there's something called the African Women's Entrepreneurship Program. And each one of these organizations, we're encouraging them to have a youth component. Mentorship is going to be important when you're transferring information and knowledge and expertise to the youth. You're right, the youth have a lot of energy, a lot of ideas, but a lot of times they just need a little bit of guidance as to how things really work. How do you get something accomplished? You know, it's good to have goals and programs and energy, but the issue is at the end of the day, did you accomplish your goals? And that's one thing that can be helped by having someone in a senior capacity give you some advice of how they did it, you know, and perhaps a view of the economy and the way things are going now, how the youth can get more involved and accomplish some goals as well for themselves and for their families. So I think there's going to have to be a greater connection between some of the existing organizations and the youth groups that are coming along. Nobody needs to just start up everything by themselves brand new. I mean, life is really not like that. You know, as you said, civilization has been going on in Africa for thousands of years. So we got to build on that past and that history in order to develop a future that we can all benefit from.
Let me ask this, and then actually I'm going to have Naledi, Frank, and then Alphonsus to follow on to your statement. But you have these remittances. It's billions of dollars worth that are coming into the continent on a year-to-year basis. In many cases, the remittances are much larger than any of the aid or investment that's coming out of North America, Europe, Asia. How do we channel that into the youth so that there's funds available, maybe 1% of it, 2%, 5%, whatever it may be? But what do you see as far as your entrepreneurship looking to these remittances instead of just going to consumable goods, being channeled a certain percentage of it into new business creation?
You know, you're gonna cause me to give a commercial now. So listen, this is what I've been.
You have the form, sir. You have the form. Go for it.
I've been working on this for the last, I don't know, it seems like 15 years. But the whole issue of when you say remittances, the remittances come from the diaspora.
Correct.
The diaspora is the golden bullet for impact and economic development in Africa. The diaspora has talent, but as you just said, it has money. The thing with the remittances that has to happen now, you have to begin to channel that money into specific economic development opportunities. One such organization is called the Kenyan Diaspora Alliance. What they're doing in Kenya, they have an investment club. They have a diaspora investment club where they're saying, okay, you already sent the remittances to your grandmama so she can take care of some things. But hey, now let's put aside some money to develop some business activities, some opportunities for us to develop our economy and our community. So the next stage of the remittances is to begin to channel it into specific business opportunities in that individual country. And one thing that has to happen, because it hasn't happened in the past, when the diaspora has tried to do that, put money into business, they hadn't had an organization that would back it up. Oh my goodness, we got too much going on. It didn't have an organization that would guarantee that the money would be properly invested. So I think
Got it.
that each country has to take a look at that. That is how you're going to get more remittances that put into economic development and job creation. If you give them a rationale for investing, they feel safe with the money that they put in to the country.
Okay,
Well,
thank you very much. Now, Letty, going to you, looking at just what Dr. Beach had to say, the remittances are going through probably most of the local banks. I mean, they're coming in by Western Union or MoneyGram. I mean, they're coming in all different ways, but somehow it's going to end up, in most cases, somewhere in the financial system. Is there any way to engage the banks, the Western Unions, the MoneyGrams of the world, and say, okay, this 80 billion, whatever it is that's coming to the continent, is important for the future of the continent and development. People need it for food, they need it for energy, they need to sustain daily life, but at the same time, they have to look about the future and all this tremendous amount of youth. I mean, just the raw energy, the incredible numbers. Can these financial institutions in any way be engaged, do you think, and the wire transfer systems to channel money into real businesses for youth and allow them to start, in essence, developing and feeding their own communities?
Definitely, that's a great question.
And I'm going to put that same question to Frank as well, so he can be getting ready to think about it.
And I want to chip in after that.
Yeah, no, no one's forgotten. Go ahead, Lady.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that's a great question. And if you would allow me just to go back, there were just 2 points I wanted to make as the conversation was developing. I think
go right ahead. You have the time.
You know, we've been talking, you know, about kind of African governments. And one thing I just wanted to kind of point out is that, of course, like anything, African governments are not this kind of homogenous group, right, block. And so what we do see is not only in the response to COVID, but also in the way that they've engaged with youth and their youth populations, there has been difference, right? So the Rwandan government, you know, was part of sponsoring an eco hack in 2018, where they brought together about 100 young African hackers from all over the continent, right, to work on digital economies and develop their thinking around that. Cote d'Ivoire and the Burkinabe government have been part of a pilot program led by UNDESA, right, to further incorporate young people in their ministries and in the kind of countrywide development, right, around agriculture and things like that. And so we do see different governments engaging in the ways that they can, or the ways that they see fit, specifically around youth and youth issues. And so I think it's important, as we continue to discuss, you know, 54 countries, that we are aware of some of the differences in the ways that they're engaging. And then second is also to remind ourselves that, you know, youth engagement and youth involvement in politics and socioeconomic issues is something that has been happening, and it's ongoing, right? Not 10 years ago, we were looking at not only the Arab Spring, but social movements and protests happening in Senegal, in Mozambique, in South Africa, in Uganda. So there is this, you know, there are ebbs and flows in the way that young people kind of engage with politics, how they do contentious politics. We see this moment now again, right, where we see overwhelmingly African support for the African American condition in the United States. And it doesn't only, you know, it's not only that they're supporting their brothers and sisters across the Atlantic, but they're seeing themselves reflected. They're seeing their own interactions with authority and with police and with the military where they are. And so these kinds of movements and these kinds of this kind of engagement is happening even amid some of the oppression and repression that we see. And so I think that harnessing that and focusing on that and allowing that to kind of grow organically is perhaps a more productive road in terms of how we engage with young people.
Okay. Let me go to Frank, but I do want to come, because I'm going to go all the way around again.
Yeah.
Frank, looking at what you're doing, I want to put that question to you as far as the financial institutions, the money transfer systems, any way the money is coming onto the continent. Is there a way to take a portion of that, as Dr. Beach was saying, and then invest that in youth, but specifically for business development, creativity, innovation, because some of the things they were doing for COVID-19, they were using local materials and their time. But can we go beyond that so there's real investment in real business creation and real jobs creation?
Yes, I think we can. We can do all things. If there is a will, we can do it. But I think, like the speaker before me was saying, yes, it's true that all different governments react differently. But there is something that I noticed in Africa is that there is what we call the Anglophone Africa, and there is also what we call the Francophone Africa.
Of course,
the Anglophone Africa
Lusophone and Lusophone.
and Lusophone, yes, but the Lusophone, there's only few countries, there are not many of them. So that's why I put them away. Okay, 5. Okay, 5 out of 54 or 53.
Oh, you're talking about the Portuguese speaking?
Yeah, Portuguese, Angola.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I'm a great fan of Portugal, so I would agree with that. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so then Lusophone also. But the point I'm trying to make is there is miracles in Africa in the Anglophone side. For example, Botswana. Botswana is a country which very early the government have decided that they will put at the center of their policy the people. And because they do that, the people are able to create, to be entrepreneur. And today, diamonds leave Botswana. It's a finished product. You see what I'm saying? Because the government again has the interest of the people at heart.
Yeah, it's a vertically integrated system.
Exactly. The same thing, you can see the same thing a little bit in Rwanda. You can see the same thing in Kenya, for example. Now, the problem is in Francophone Africa because of the system. I believe that those governments in most of those countries, and I will speak especially for Gabon because that's where I'm from originally, we have what I will call a government that is a predator. So that means that every money that is coming from the outside, they take it for their own good. It will never go to the people. So now, how can we change that? I mean, I really don't know, because I think personally that the best way to resolve that issue is that we need to create a bridge, a direct bridge between a African youth organization in Francophone Africa directly with whomsoever wanted to lend us money or technology or whatever, so we can emancipate ourselves. But the other thing that I want to say for people who are asking the question that why is it that we always wait for the West or for other people to help us? This is what I want to say. Europe was rebuilt by the help of the United States. The Marshall Plan was money that the United States gave to Europe, and Europe was able to rebuild itself, and Europe became one of the greatest partners of the United States. So it was good for Europe, and it was good also for the United States. So I'm thinking that that kind of relationship, that's what I would like to see in Africa, a relationship that is beneficial for both, the one who lend the money and the one who received the money. And let us not forget that in 2100, African people will be, I believe, like almost 2 billion people. If you only sell a product that costs only $1, okay, to half of that population, which is 1 billion people, you're already a billionaire. And I think that the world cannot ignore that. I mean, this is a huge market. It's beneficial for the world. So that's why I say to those who are skeptic and say that, why should the world help Africa? I mean, because there's money to be made on both sides. And I think that we need to empower the African youth. Exactly. And we need to empower the African youth so the African youth can put in power people who cater to their interests, the African youth.
Okay, thank you,
so
Frank. Alphonsus,
yes, sir.
I'm going to give you your time now. I'm going to give you about 2 minutes.
No problem.
And then we need to go to our Francophone colleagues here, Frank and Rogers, to do their summary. And then we have a very distinguished young man who's going to be summarizing at the end. And Mary has something to say. Alphonsus first, Mary, then you can do yours, okay?
Okay. Well,
I haven't forgot about you, but Alphonsus needs to have his time. Alphonsus, go ahead.
You know, in all of this, yes, I believe that should be a mind shift. That should be a different mindset of African youths, because there's so much corruption, they glamorize those who are flamboyantly living, and the youth don't want to work because they want the quick fix. They want to grab the money. They spend so much time on the internet looking for some dubious way of making it or making wealth. So the mind shift is, yes, this money goes to these banks, and how will they invest it in the community, invest them? Look, there's so much option that even a young girl to get employment in an office, she has to submit herself to whoever is going to be the employer. So there's so much corruption going on, not just even money embezzlement, but morally corrupt people. So if there's any investment to be given, not these new leaders we have, these leaders we have now in Africa, even if Marshall Plan needs to be implemented in Africa, all these leaders we see now got to go. They have to go so that the new mindset of leadership that's really concerned about the people, like the example that my brother gave in Botswana, people that have the people interest, not their selfish interest. That has to be in place. And how do we do that? We need the West to assist, because he that plays the piper dictates the tune. The West has been playing the pipe of African politics for too long, and they have to step back and not support the evil governments. That's how I see that happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Mary, why don't you, you had a question and a statement you wanted to make.
Yeah,
are you here?
Yes, I have a question. Hello?
Okay, go ahead.
Yes, I have a question from Dr. Mutisha. His question says, how do we raise awareness about COVID and other crises that are impacting youth without blaming each other, the government or the legislature? And that question, maybe I should be actually take from it to answer the question, and I saw he's still on the line. What we are raising here is not that we are blaming. We are trying to point to what is needed. It is actually to the responsibility of the government to say, hey, these people are really, actually, I call it a blessing, because you can't know what you are doing wrong until you are you are told that there is a wrong here. So to me, this, I should call it like an opportunity for either the governments or even other policy makers to say, you know what, this is what is needed on the continent. We have to pay attention to youth, especially that they are the future generations. And two, while I'm winding up, I think it was the Prime Minister of UK, Gladstone, who said, nothing is wrong morally that is going to be politically correct. So if we say youth unemployment, it will create youth inequity, it is morally wrong. If we say women unemployment and unempowerment, it's socially wrong. It is not going to be politically right. So back to you.